Now available for the first time in paperback. Why 70% of black women are single. Learn all the reasons why so many black women can't find a husband and why 70% of black women are single. Get your copy of Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com today.
Last night, former NBA superstar Paul Pierce was let go from his position working at ESPN. Now, your Paul Pierce had worked at ESPN on shows like NBA Countdown and The Jump, and he was possibly let go from working at ESPN after a live stream appeared showing him in this live stream smoking a black and mild, drinking some alcohol, and featuring some strippers twerking in the background of this live stream. Now, when I take a critical examination of this termination of Paul Pierce, he might have been let go for two reasons. The first reason, which is based on the technicality of breach of contract, could have been for what your Disney, the owner of ESPN, considered unprofessional conduct. Now, usually when people like Paul Pierce sign contracts to work for places like ESPN, they have a term in the contract called professional conduct and not appearing in ways that make the brand look bad. And this could have been one of the justifications for ESPN letting Paul Pierce out of his contract and terminating his employment, because to see one of their staff who was on many of their shows out here smoking a black and mild, drinking some alcohol, and then featuring some strippers in the background doing some twerking, this would be considered really unprofessional behavior that would be considered detrimental to a brand like ESPN, and this could have been the reason for your Paul Pierce's termination from ESPN. Now, the other reason why Paul Pierce might have been terminated from his contract at ESPN has to do with the unwritten social rules as related to black men. And your Disney and ESPN might have gone out here and terminated Paul Pierce from his contract basically for being a heterosexual black man who, in their eyes, had the audacity to express himself in a way that was heterosexual and masculine. Because many who hire black men for jobs at places like ESPN in the entertainment industry, usually they do not want to see a strong masculine heterosexual black man expressing himself in a heterosexual fashion the way your Paul Pierce expressed himself in that live stream. Now, your Paul Pierce, the way he was expressing himself was the way many guys in the NBA can conduct themselves when they're off the court, but that was something that would be considered, according to the unwritten social rules of white supremacy, something that many people don't want to see as related to black men. So usually when they hire men to work on these shows, they usually want to see either an asexual black man who is basically emasculated and does not express himself in any sort of sexual fashion, or they want to see some emasculated male who just is basically there to look like a male but never really expresses any sort of sexual interest. And that's probably one of the possible reasons that Paul Pierce was terminated, because he had the audacity to go out here and express himself in that heterosexual fashion. That is possibly one of the reasons why he was terminated, because that would be considered a breach of contract as related to the unwritten social rules that allow a black man like Paul Pierce to be employed. Now, what your Paul Pierce was doing in that live stream was no different than any other NBA player out here. Many of these NBA players, they go out here and live this kind of lifestyle when they are off the court. So what you were seeing with Paul Pierce is something that was pretty common for your NBA players to see these guys having a live stream where they're going out here smoking their Black and Milds, drinking their alcohol, having their strippers and their groupies. This is something that goes on with many NBA players, but maybe it wasn't very smart for your Paul Pierce to live stream this on Instagram for the world to see. But that is something that Paul Pierce probably wasn't really thinking about critically, because usually a lot of these guys, like your Paul Pierce, they usually are just thinking in the moment, and your Paul Pierce probably impulsively thought, oh, I'll just put this live stream on with me with these ladies and me having a good time, and most people won't get offended by it. But it seems like the executives at ESPN and Disney, they had a serious issue with your Paul Pierce having that good time, smoking up, having the ladies sitting there twerking, and him having that good time with those ladies. And again, the critical question I have to ask, is it because your Paul Pierce was violating his contract, or was it because he violated the unwritten social rule of being a heterosexual black man who had the audacity to express himself and be able to feel that he was confident enough to go out here and have that good time and broadcast it to the world? That is the critical question I have to ask regarding the termination of Paul Pierce, because when I look at the whole event, it's looking more and more like it was because your Paul Pierce was a heterosexual black man and had the audacity to go out here and show himself having a good time and show himself having an interest in women. And that's something your people in the entertainment industry have a real serious issue with as related to black men. They really don't like seeing heterosexual black men expressing an interest in women, and that's due to many in your white supremacist Hollywood having a deep insecurity about black males having their interest in women, because they fear that if these black men come around, they're going to have an interest in white women. So that is one of the reasons why they probably let Paul Pierce out of his contract, and probably the main reason why they let him out of his contract, because if your Paul Pierce was out here acting like a Bryant Gumbel, and he was acting in a very emasculated and neutered fashion, there's the possibility that he might have still been able to keep his job at ESPN. Now, I have to ask another critical question as related to Paul Pierce. I have to wonder if this was a white guy sitting up here smoking up, having his alcohol, and having some strippers in the background, would your ESPN have let him out of his contract and let him go? Or would they have possibly done something like a lesser punishment, like suspending him? That's a critical question I have to ask regarding this whole Paul Pierce situation, because it's looking to me like there might have been a possible double standard, and it's also looking like there might be some hypocrisy from those in the mainstream media, because there are those in the mainstream media who want to punish Paul Pierce for his expression of his own heterosexuality and manhood. But if we look back at 2020's election, we had an ad which was saying that black men should take their booties to the poll, featuring strippers. But when this black man goes out here and has strippers on his own terms, then you want to go out here and punish this black man by taking away his employment and his ability to make a living. And that really is what makes many in the entertainment industry look like hypocrites, because you went out here and used this stereotype of a black brute to go out here and push this narrative to get black men to take their booties to the pole, and that was perfectly fine for you. But when this black man goes out here and expresses his heterosexuality and his masculinity and manhood, then you want to punish that black man for being a heterosexual black man. And this is what really makes this whole Paul Pierce situation quite troubling, is Paul Pierce being terminated for violating ESPN and Disney's contract with him, or are they punishing him for being a heterosexual black man who wants to go out here and show his, what we see in these in the Instagram images and live stream, his economic power, his power to go out here and live life on his own terms, be able to have a good time in his home, be able to pick up and have access to the finest women, and do all of this. Is this what their issue is? Because if this is what their issue is, that is the same issue that many of your racists and white supremacists have with heterosexual black men. They don't like the idea of this black man being able to go out here and have that good time with his own money that he earned, and be able to go out here and live this lifestyle. But this is a lifestyle many of your so-called ballers have been living for years. This is what many of your NBA players, this is how they live. This is their lifestyle. But it seems like they want to go out here and punish your Paul Pierce for this whole live stream. And it seems like they wanted to have him, again, taken out. Again, the NBA season isn't even over, but it's looking like they want to go out here and terminate him, really, because he was out here living a lifestyle that every other NBA player has done for years. And it really looks like it's about punishing, again, a heterosexual black man for being a heterosexual black man. But it's all speculation on my part, because when I look at this, again, this termination, it's looking quite questionable. And while on the surface, on the technical sense, it's probably considered to be a breach of contract as related to image, I really, again, I'm looking at it and thinking maybe, possibly, this could be because a black man had the audacity to be a man, and they're punishing him for being a man who wanted to go out here and have a good time with his own money. And if that's the case, then there's probably some racism in the undertones of this, and those undertones, again, really show some hypocrisy, because if it's okay for a black man to take his booty to the pole, then it should be okay for him to enjoy some booty in his house. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications featuring strong black male heroes like John Haynes, or you want to pick up some of my books featuring heroines like Isis and Eastine and Matilda Crowley, you can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks in a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business at paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.